life is short for all of us. We don't need extra rubbish in our lives. Like, make every utterance that you make worth it and mean something. Why would you write a piece that's already not speaking to the future?
Yeah.
Like, I think the act of composition is believing in the future.
Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Gillian.
And I'm Paul, and today, Gillian, you are sitting down with someone whose music has very likely been on just about everyone's music rest at some point in time, and in most student music bags as well.
Yes, that's so true. My guest is the wonderful Elissa Milne. Elissa is an Australian composer whose educational piano music is just, I think, loved and played by so many teachers and students all over the world, and has been for I hate to age her, but decades. I mean, we're aging all of us, aren't we, really? But if you've ever taught from the Little Peppers series or the Pepperbox Jazz, or many of Elissa's books have the word pepper in it, or perhaps you've come across her pieces in any number of exam syllabuses from AMEB in Australia to ABRSM in UK and around the world. ABRSM's everywhere, isn't it? Trinity and the Canadian syllabus RCM, which is also used quite widely in the US. Any of these syllabuses, then you probably already know her work, even if you hadn't yet had the chance to meet her.
Well, we were so lucky to catch up with Elissa at Top Music Live in Sydney. And what struck me about her session, and what you'll hear in this conversation, is that Elissa thinks very deeply about why she writes and actually what she writes, and how her music is meant to be used in the studio. I find this so interesting. And also she's so generous and hysterically funny, and she has some genuinely provocative ideas about what we're really doing when we teach a piece of music to our students. In today's conversation, Gillian and Elissa get into the craft of writing music that's actually useful for teachers, music that fits the scaffolding our students need, rather than tripping them up. We talk about why exploration, experimentation, and student choice belongs at the start of learning.
And that is just done so widely because we often get the student to learn the piece first, and then we extend it, and we do these extension activities when they're really sick to death of the piece and really want to get to the next piece. But Elissa's saying, no, let's flip that around and start the exploration at the beginning, because it actually gives us more perhaps energy and excitement to learn the piece as well, and also getting our hands around the piece without even knowing about it. So I think that's a really... Anyway, you'll hear about all that in our interview that we did.
That's great. Well, let's go on to it.
I'm here with Elissa Milne, and Elissa is a very famous Australian composer, and world-renowned, known all over the world for her beautiful composing and pieces. So we're going to dive into a little bit of that, because it's not very often that we actually have a real live composer.
And I'm alive and I'm here. Yeah,
exactly. To talk to about their work. I think the reason why your work is so popular and so well known and so embraced by piano teachers. It was just amazing to see in the session where all the hands went up and everyone had a favorite piece of yours in the whole room. Everybody knows your work, which is really lovely. Must feel very good as a composer to see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the music's been around for a while. So, I had the days where no one had heard of it at all. I knew it and no one else had.
Yes.
And it's nice that as time passes, more and more people have embraced it and discovered it and had fun with it.
Yes, and you probably got piano teachers now that learned them as kids and now, what are they?
Yes,
the generation thing.
I've actually had, emails or messages from people, and it's you do feel quite old quite quickly.
I know. You do. So what I love about your music, I think, is that it's this perfect, cameo is probably not the right word, but every note is considered. There's minimalism to it in that every note is there seems to be absolutely considered. Do you intentionally go about that? How?
Yes. Life is short for all of us. We don't need extra rubbish in our lives. If I'm going to the effort to put a piece of music out there into the public eye and for public use, I want it to be as useful as possible. And being useful means not having extra stuff to kind of deal with. Like, make every utterance that you make worth it and mean something. So there's that kind of, I don't know if it's ethical or aesthetic kind of value going on, but also it's just kind of good composition as well. You know, it's like it's a good principle for as an architectural. It's a good architectural principle.
So there's a lot of art to it. It's not just that you don't need beta one day and say, "Oh, write that down. That's great."
Yeah, I mean, like occasionally with the very short pieces, I will get the idea all at once, and there's no sort of work to be done because the idea kind of came all together. But with a lot of pieces, it might have a kind of, you know, germ of an idea, and then, you know, it's like, well, I could do this, I could do that, and writing down the piece that's going to go into the public is, well, this is a really useful version of this. I could write 7 other versions, but this is the version I think will be the most helpful, and that's the one that gets published.
So do you use your students as crash test dummies?
Well,
Like, do you give them various different iterations of this piece and then you go, oh,
no. Like, and this is the thing. Like, when I first had the Little Peppers and Pepperbox Jazz pieces published by Faber over in London, they're like, oh, you know, we're going to market this as like you wrote them for your students and, you know, your students gave you feedback. And it's like, well, that kind of happened, but I knew what I wanted to do. And like, I knew if it was going to work or not. Like, if it didn't, I wouldn't bother showing it to the student. And like, sometimes I might be surprised at the feedback. Like, I might have a stereotype in my mind, like what kind of sound would resonate with different students. But that was more sort of culture keeps changing. And
just a bit of a check-in.
Yeah, and the ideas that we have about like, oh, what does an 11-year-old like these days actually does change. And, you know, back 30 years ago, there was a real kind of boys versus girls kind of concept, like boys will like this and girls will like that. And of course, it's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
The boys are just as likely to like a piece as the girls and vice versa. And, you know, often the only thing that would maybe surprise me back in those days was that, if anything, the trend was that the girls like the energetic, aggressive stuff and the boys like the emotional stuff. Like, you know,
which is kind of counterintuitive.
It was so going against, you know, all the stuff people say. And it's like, well, my students in a very normal suburb, very normal cross section, they were just being themselves and they weren't bothering with the stereotype. So that was probably the biggest bit of feedback. But in terms of, does the piece work? Will it be useful? Will it engage?
Yeah. So you really use a pedagogical framework in your mind thinking about it.
Oh, it was incredibly intentionally, this is music for teaching and learning. And sometimes it would be more like the experience of the student would be prime.
Yes.
And sometimes, genuinely, the experience of the teacher would be prime, because often they don't quite align. And especially in a world that we live in here in Australia that's got such an exam focus, understanding the kinds of scaffolding that the exam boards expect, that was a very big consideration for me as well. There's no point writing a piece that's mostly at one level with a little 8-bar phrase that's miles more difficult. And I think in any exam culture, the teachers really do internalize that scaffolding quite well.
Yeah.
And you kind of have a, you know, you might go, oh, is it grade 3 or 4? But you're not
going grade 1 or grade 4.
Yeah, like it's within a very narrow band. And so there's also the feeling of like, well, all of the teachers are going to look at music that is all over the place and go, well, that's not useful.
Well, it's not so useful, because I think that's a great, you know, talking about the teachers do have this good ranking about what things are. But when you think about the students, you know, they can be happily playing along, really loving this bit, and then if they hit crash and burn over 8 bars or 4 bars or something like that, you don't really want it for the students. So it's kind of not useful.
And look, often students, I mean, as we all know, a student will go, I really love the Moonlight Sonata and I want to play it. And they've only got grade 2 skills, you know. And they'll work really hard and they'll actually be able to play so much more than we might have expected because they're so keen to do it.
Yes.
But that's not good pedagogy.
No.
Like, that's great in terms of supporting the student with their identity and their desire to be a musician.
Yeah.
But in terms of our job of providing that scaffold and foundation for success, as the title says, if you're actually building for success all of the time, the teacher's happy, the student's happy, the parents happy, everybody has joy and happiness.
I think that's been true of all generations,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Has been true of all generations. But even yesterday we heard from Anita Collins,
Yes.
and she was talking about even more critical that these our students today have little successes. So even more reason why we can't have crash and burn moments and things like that.
Yeah. And look, I think part of that is that's getting into a bigger thing of like who is taking piano lessons these days, because we didn't have to be so worried about that in the past, because if you weren't kind of really good at it, the parents wouldn't bother signing you up for piano lessons because there wasn't an understanding of the benefit to your development of learning a musical instrument. So the only kids who would take piano lessons would be quite suited, like their executive function and their motor planning skills and all of that sort of occupational therapy stuff was taken care of. And we didn't need to deal with that. But these days, the students we have coming into our practices and studios are of all kinds.
Yeah.
And the parents are going, but we know you can help us with making life wonderful for our child. Like you're collaborating with us in taking them to adulthood in this way. And it's a different ask for piano teachers than it used to be. So anyway.
Yeah. So back to your beautiful compositions, with compositions that are so artfully and thoughtfully put together, as piano teachers, many teachers would feel, well, this is like perfect the way it is and the composer doesn't want me to muck with it. But actually I was really, really curious, very interested to hear you embrace the idea of utilizing types of frameworks within the piece. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
I so very much believe that music is about experimenting and exploring and discovering. And anything that shuts that down had better be doing it for a very, very good reason. And a lot of the times, the narratives that we've been, certainly my generation, and I think probably right through to today as well, it's pretty prevalent around the world, that your job as a pianist performing a piece is not to have thoughts of your own.
Yes.
It's to express the thoughts of someone else, probably someone who's dead, and probably somebody who lives who lived their whole life in a completely different part of the world.
Yeah.
And
Playing a different instrument.
they never spoke the actual spoken, like they probably didn't speak the language that you speak.
Yeah.
They know nothing about your life, and they certainly know nothing about what you go through as a 21st century human. But you're expected to be the vessel to impart their spirit to the world. And it's like, just think about that for a moment. Also compare it to what we expect of actors. When an actor takes a script that's by Shakespeare, who's even further back than most of the music we play, there is no expectation that you're trying to channel Shakespeare. You're taking his text and you're saying something about the contemporary world. And part of the reason we know that Shakespeare works today, I've kind of gone big philosophy here, so I just don't want to visit
It's a great analogy.
But we love productions of Shakespeare that apply to the world today. And the reason we keep coming back to Shakespeare is because there's stuff in the text that can speak to our moment. But it can't speak to our moment if we go, do you know what? Shakespeare wouldn't have produced it that way. It's like, no, he wouldn't, because he was back then.
Yeah. And the lives of the everyday person was a very different thing.
And I just think there's I'm getting quite serious here in a bigger picture way, but I actually think there's a really big ethical consideration for us in terms of what are we actually doing, especially when we ask a young child to vacate themselves of their own opinions and their own life experience and to become a vessel for a dead German before there even was a Germany, And like what
Doesn't make sense.
How does that, what's the value of that? And the music is beautiful. Like there's no problem with the music, but it's the cultural project that's like, we don't stop and actually think about that. All of which is background to say, I think it's very important for students to understand that all of the texts in their life, musical, Shakespeare, like newspaper, like it doesn't matter what it is. Somebody made it up. Somebody made choices to present their argument in a particular way. And the more they experiment with, well, what can I do with these ideas? The same way that a theatre production takes a Shakespeare text is, what can we do with this text to say something about the world today? We're setting our kids up with amazing musical critical thinking skills. And we're not doing it in a top-down way. We're saying, hey, take this easy piece, see what you can do with it. And the more they experience making choices, the more they are playing when they perform my thoughts, the more they are doing so as a choice and with their own ideas coming in. And it stops being about being accurate and serving kind of the God composer. Like, you know, I'm very anti-messiahs, you know, and the whole idea that there's anybody who's going to save us in the sense of my ideas are more special than yours. They're not. They're organized in a particular way that might work for you, might be useful for you, but it only works if you have your ideas too.
Now, like, I can't remember what the name of what piece we were talking about yesterday. You had essentially had a left hand, we had a right hand, sort of question answer thing. And you said, these are the selections that I made to end these ones with. But please play around with it and have your, you know, I had like all of these suggestions and I just thought, I'll just choose these ones. I could have chosen any one. And then you said, have your students play around with that and get them with their own questions, because should they be in an exam? Want to finish that off?
Well, if it goes wrong, if they make a mistake, they know it doesn't matter what they play, they can still make music.
And they can recover from it.
And to be honest, the number of concert pianists who make all kinds of mistakes in performance, and we don't care. The whole audience, even if you do know, you don't care because
it was a moment.
Because the accuracy isn't where the truth lies.
The truth is,
it's in the other stuff. And I do think that in piano lessons particularly, probably more than, I mean, it's hard to compare instrument to instrument, but because we have keys we can press, it's so tempting to turn the keys into a data entry exercise and to think if we get the data wrong, we've missed the truth, like the calculations will come out wrong. And it's like, no. The keyboard on a piano is not like the keyboard on a computer. And the garbage in, garbage out is more to do with your intention and understanding gesture than it is to do with exactly what you play. You could play all the wrong notes with the right rhythm and it's music. And exactly. I mean, people play games of like, they just, they do the rhythm of a pop song and who can recognize it? And we get it, like humans. Anyway, again, that could be a whole conversation. But I really deeply, deeply believe that the music that we teach with should be the start of the conversation, the start of the exploration, not the end.
Yes. And so would you actually, in terms of the teaching process, would you recommend learning the whole piece and then starting through variation? Or do you say, look, here's the bass line, let's just do this bass line now, I want you to start mucking around with this. And then through the whole process, they'll end up with ending bit.
I love this question. Like, I was almost going, oh my goodness, I should have actually done, and then you asked the question. So, perfect. I seriously love starting with the exploring, because that's how human brains actually do work. You know, like all those videos of little babies tasting food for the first time, and we're like, oh, it's so cute, they're having that first experience. You want that. You don't want it to come along afterwards like, oh, and then you can also do this other thing, like it's the extra. In actual fact, the performance doing it my way, that's the extra. The business of exploring what you can do with these gestures, that's the real business of the learning, in my opinion.
Yes. I think also it creates very deep foundations in that piece, doesn't it?
You know the piece. Like if you approach it from, we're going to learn this little bit and then we're going to muck around with it. Like a tiny bit, not the whole piece, just one bar.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that was Chase I was talking about, which just goes boom, boom, digger, digger. Like one hand does the boom, boom, digger, digger.
Yes.
That's really easy to learn. I mean, you could then just do boom, boom, digger, diggers all over the piano if you wanted. You could do something completely contrasting. And by the time you're done with your exploring of that, you're ready to do something more complex that maybe you didn't think of.
Yeah.
You know, but you're not ready for that if you haven't integrated that first set of gestures.
Yeah. And it's just that, as you say, a gesture or a fragment to the gesture within the piece that is, I think that boom, boom, digga, digga is fundamental to that piece.
Yeah.
You know, it's
like that's the business of the piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get that and be able to orientate, put that into many, many different contexts, octaves, all different things,
Yes.
notes, whatever,
Yes.
then that really just makes you feel so confident about pursuing a piece.
And then it comes back to what you said before in terms of, so if you start on the wrong note, you know it doesn't matter because you've got the gestures right. And I just, avoiding accuracy as our goal is just so fundamental to being musical.
Yes.
And I know that sounds like, you know, oh, you're saying we don't need to be accurate. No, of course, it's delightful when we're accurate because when a piece is well composed, it works. It's really good. Like it's actually very joyous to go through a well composed statement, whether it's, you know, a famous text or a speech that we've heard somebody give, like, you know, I have a dream. Why would you change the words in that speech? It's a wonderful speech. Similarly with a well-written piece of music. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't inhabit it with your own opinions and your own ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I really liked, I mean, there's so many things I liked about it. One thing I would just like to share with our audience is this idea of, because most of your pieces are so popular, I think, because they've got this contemporary sound to them. And the students, not just children, students of all ages love them because they feel pretty cool doing it, and it feels something that they can really encounter positively. So, and I think you made a lot of points about, actually, I'll wait for you to talk about it. If we're teaching a classical piece of music and we'd be maybe thinking about it, a very straight rhythm, and we're looking at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, like that kind of thing. But when we're teaching contemporary music, there's perhaps an easier way to go about it.
Yeah.
And perhaps that counting approach doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, I mean, like the dun dun digga digga, you can kind of do that in a classical way if you want to. You know, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that kind of works. But with so much of the rhythm in the music we experience in the world, generally, I think yesterday I was saying, you hear this stuff when you're at the supermarket, you know. Although I must say at the supermarket these days, I'm hearing a lot of 80s. I'm getting a lot of that, which I love. I'm here for it. That's great. But
and it's disrupting that. Well, you were saying actually, even if you listen to the sounds of the streetscape,
yes,
it's got that.
It's got that going on. So a lot of rhythms are actually we would normally describe them as either syncopated or Latin rhythms, or, you know, we don't necessarily have a strong vocabulary in the English language or an English language music education.
No.
Outside of niche spheres, which often don't address exactly what's happening in 2026. They might address, well, what happened in 1950, but not 2026. And so there's just all kinds of shapes that we know in our bodies, we know in our musical imaginations and our musical memories, but we don't really have a notational kind of familiarity with that.
Boom, boom, digga digga. Like as soon as you say boom, boom, digga digga,
everyone knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
But like the other rhythms, like da 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 da,
fades out.
You know, and you've got that underlying pattern that I was clicking, and then you've got the rhythm on the top. And when you notate that in classical Western 4/4 notation, you have to notate it in 4/4, otherwise it doesn't work. But you don't get the vibe of it from the layout on the page. You just don't get the shape of the gestures. So that's where I'm like, do not use the score. Like start with da 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 da. Like if you can actually say all of that, you're already playing it right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when kids want to play a pop song and then you get the awful arrangement and the rhythms have been changed and you're like, what?
Doesn't sound anything like
they've
it.
changed it so it's easy to read.
Yes.
But it becomes impossible to play because everyone knows how it goes.
Yeah.
And the notation doesn't line up. All of that.
The kids often say, it doesn't sound like, it should go like this. should I play it like that? No, play it how it sounds.
Yeah, you've got two competing narratives, right? Of like the notation is the right thing.
Right, yes.
Like that's kind of God.
Yes.
And then, but I know that's wrong.
Yeah.
And so they're having a kind of crisis.
Even something as simple as Ode to Joy, where they take the dot out of it.
Where they take, oh my goodness, that's the earliest experience that most kids have of going, what? Yeah. And then, of course, it continues on. And there's really, even pop stars like Taylor Swift who do really basic chord progressions, the rhythms often aren't.
Yes.
You know, like you might think of it as simple music, but then when you actually come to execute, if you're doing a 19th century style notation, it just doesn't quite hit the spot all the time. And of course, there are so many wonderful musicians out there doing far more complicated work that all of our kids love and they want to play. And
it's hard. So I think it's really great that to start thinking about forgetting. So if we can't use if we're not going to use numbering, then boom, boom, digger, digger. So using our voice, using our body. And I think also our imagination. I just really love when you said this chord progression that was hologrammatic. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Well, I'll do my little BTS reference because, you know, people watching today might know the song. So for those of you, I'll look direct to camera. For those of you who have been following along with K-pop, you'll know that BTS has come out with a brand new album after many years, and the number one song, first song they released, was this song called Swim. And of course, it's got this chord progression that goes from a major chord to the minor chord that's just a semitone below. And, you know, I actually don't recall off the top of my head which key Swim is in, but let's say it's in E flat major. So you've got an E flat major chord and then you go to a D minor chord. And when you've got that combination of chords right beside each other and you're flicking between the two, and in that song, then they don't use any other chords. It's just those two chords. You're creating something that we don't have language for in Western music theory.
Where's 1, 4, 5, 7, 1?
So I call this flicking between two close chords that are like they've got to have completely different notes to each other. Like it can't be a pivot. It's got to be where one set of notes to another set of notes. I call that a harmonic hologram because you're just flicking between the two. And it is a powerful structuring
image.
Strategy is the word I'm looking for. It's a strategy that you can use to structure a piece as long as a whole pop song.
Yeah.
And in fact, you could structure a whole orchestral work if you wanted, just using a single harmonic hologram. You might have reasons why you want to have a little bit, you want to go somewhere else. But in theory, there's so much energy in that shift between the two. And there's so much human intrigue and like, oh, look at it here. Oh, look at it here. And just like fabrics, that are shot.
Yes.
Like it looks completely green and then it looks completely red. And you're like, wow. It's amazing how humans love that. Like it's
novelty.
You can sit there for ages playing with it going, oh. And in music, it's even more so. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, that time of patterns would be really great improvisation exercise as well.
100%. And because it's a very contemporary harmonic strategy, it doesn't matter what you do with it. It feels fresh and feels very contemporary. Yeah. And it also feels like people haven't said it all yet.
Yeah.
It's not a cliche at this point. It still feels like, oh, I could do this and I could do that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're experimenting with a perfect cadence, you very quickly go, no, it's all been like it just turns into a joke.
I think you said yesterday, this kind of thing's been around for 15 years, but it's going to still be you're still going to be cool in 25 years.
Oh, yeah, it will be. 100%. Like 2050, this will still be a strategy.
You're a futurist as well.
I'm totally a futurist. Totally. Predicting the future is my accidental second gig. But I kind of think that's what composers do though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, why would you write a piece that's already not speaking to the future?
Yeah.
Like, I think the act of composition is believing in the future. Because like if you think the future's not you know what I mean? Like it's a very optimistic thing to write a piece of music.
Yes. And perhaps that's why your books have just been so eternal. Like your Papa Kate, like that, they're as fresh today
as they were 25 years ago when I was that piece Scoop that was the start of my presentation, that was actually the very first educational piece I ever wrote. And I wrote that one kind of as an experiment, like, can I do this? And having written it, I was like, oh, I think I can. So let's do some more. And like, that was me going, okay, you now have permission to invest more time into exploring whether educational music will be part of your compositional career. Because essentially I was a composer, like taught piano on the side, but I was trained as a composer, and I was writing musicals and all sorts of things. And the moment arrived where I just had this moment of going, maybe I could be useful in this way. Because I really believe that music should serve more than just kind of an emotional, indulgence of yourself. Like, I just had these big feelings. Well, okay, go to therapy. But, if you've got something that was a big feeling for you and that you can make it useful for other people in whatever format, then it's worth doing. Yeah. It's worth actually asking people to take the time to engage with your thoughts. Because, it's a lot of humans on this planet. Yeah. We don't have time to engage with everybody's thoughts. No. So if I put a thought out there, I want it to be worth people's time. So,
well, your pieces are worth people's time, for sure. And so let's talk about, because you're famous worldwide.
Well,
so
after enough time, word spreads.
So Faber is your publisher.
Faber in London published the Little Pepper series and the Pepperbox Jazz series. And they've got a few bits and bobs in they've commissioned little things for me that turn up in other books as well. And I sometimes forget to mention those. Mm-hmm. So I've got one cello piece in a book that's been a grade 1 cello piece for the Canadian exam system. And, things like that. So there's just little bits and pieces all over the place.
So you're very prolific in the Australian exam system.
Yes.
And also in other overseas?
All around, like, all of the English-speaking exam systems pretty much have embraced things. It's fascinating for me, though, to see who embraces what. One of the very first pieces to get included in the exam syllabus was a little piece I wrote called Lost. And it's maybe one of the most conservative-sounding pieces I've ever written. It's not kind of jazzy. It's kind of maybe a little bit like a sad Bartok piece, I don't mean a bad Bartok piece.
No, like Lost Cat or something.
Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe. When Bartok does sad music, this piece sounds like that. And when I wrote, I thought, oh, this will appeal to the English exam boards. And the next year, it was in the Trinity College syllabus for grade 1 or grade 2. Yeah, can't remember which grade. Anyway, one of those early grades. And I was like, oh, there you go. Like, yeah, that was that. But
didn't mention psychic as well. Because these things are very hard to predict.
Well, that one just seemed
logical
to match the way that English exam boards selected things. And pieces that haven't gained any traction in Australia, the Canadian exam board have gone, oh yes, please, we'll have more of that sound. And there's a real sort of aesthetic to which kinds of pieces are embraced by different exam boards. And I think that speaks as well to the different values that are in different exam boards, which is fascinating to me. Like, there's no single right way, and it's just really interesting to see. But there's one piece that I'm like, why have none of them picked up Antarctic Breeze in Pepperbox Jazz 1? Now, I don't expect anybody who's listening to this to necessarily know it, but it is a fantastic, quite sophisticated, but still quite easy piece. And I keep waiting for someone somewhere in the world to pick it up. So, just putting it out there. Because I have also learned in my years that if you say it out loud,
it'll happen.
Sometimes it happens.
Well, we've got a piece like that called Snowstorm. It's a multimeter piece. It's brilliant. No one's picked it up.
Okay, so it's storms and breezes, people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what to pick. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
Make sure that you go and check out Elissa's music, because it's absolutely brilliant and your students will love it.
Thank you.
What a generous, thought-provoking conversation. Elissa has such a clear and considered way of talking about music. And every time I speak with her, I come away with at least 3 or 4 things I want to try in my own teaching.
I so agree with that. Well, we're going to leave you with few threads that we took away, because we've kind of compared notes at the end. And the first idea is that every note Elissa uses as a composer is considered. There isn't an extra note in her pieces anywhere. It's just they're so beautifully crafted. And so when we put a piece of music in front of our students, we're handing them an absolute gem. That means a lot because we're not having to sort of think, why would we have to do that? You know, why are those extra notes there? There isn't an extra note. And I love Elissa's invitation to let students experiment with the gestures inside the piece. As we said before, let them play one bar and let them try boom, boom, digga, digga, up an octave in a different key or with a hand swapped over. She's keen that her pieces become the start of a musical conversation, not the end of it. And I just think that's so lovely, because sometimes we think as teachers, oh no, we're doing our composers an injustice if we start playing around with their pieces, but she welcomes that.
Yes, exactly. And the second point is about accuracy. And have you ever thought of that piano exercise, that sort of data entry, or making sure they play the right notes and right rhythms and right fingering, and that nothing else matters? Well, Elissa's reframing is worth sitting with. The truth of a piece lives in the gesture and the intention, not in the note perfect accuracy. And of course, that doesn't mean we stop caring about accuracy. It just means we stop leading with it. And honestly, I think our students will breathe a sigh of relief as well, don't you?
Yeah, I certainly do. And I think the third point that I would really like everyone to take away with is what Elissa said about children walking into our studios today. They are not the same cohort we were teaching 20 or 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. Parents are bringing us children of all kinds because they understand now that music helps shape the whole child. And that's just such a beautiful thing. And it's also a bigger ask of us as teachers as well. This conversation somewhat echoes so much of what Dr. Anita Collins shared with us in the previous episode. And it's part of why the work you do matters so much.
Oh, it certainly does. Now, if today's episode lit something up for you, please share it with a teacher friend who'd love it. And do go and explore Elissa's music. Her Little Peppers and Pepperbox Jazz series are published by Faber. And we'll put the links in the show notes. And keep an eye and an ear out for Antarctic Breeze. Elissa has officially put it on the record that is the one that is due a moment in the sun.
Well, if you like today's episode, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the platform you're on know that you like to see more. And if you'd like to get each new episode or blog when it's released, well, just go to our website, pianoteachingsuccess.com, click the join the newsletter list, and we'll make sure you never miss an episode of free resource again.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.